This happened to me and two friends in 2019, and I still don't talk about it much. I was 22, living in Arizona, and into hiking and caving. Not the technical kind with ropes and gear, more like exploring small local caverns people had mostly forgotten. One weekend, me, my friend Sam, and his cousin Ryan decided to check out a cave system near Flagstaff that a guy from a local outdoor forum had posted about. It wasn't on any official map, just coordinates and a vague warning. Not for beginners. Keep track of your path. Don't go alone. We should have taken that more seriously. We drove up early Saturday morning, parked at a forest access point, and hiked about 2 miles off trail before we found the entrance. It was a narrow slit between two mossy boulders, barely enough to crawl through. But once we were in, it opened up into a large, cool chamber. Everything echoed, and the air smelled damp and earthy. We marked the entrance with orange flagging tape and used chalk to mark arrows on the stone as we moved. I was always the careful one. We had headlamps, backup flashlights, and extra batteries. We weren't reckless, just curious. The cave kept going, twisting, splitting, narrowing. Some parts we had to belly crawl through. We were deep in maybe 2 hours when we hit a section that felt wrong. I can't explain it. The air pressure changed. It felt heavier, thicker. There was a low hum, too, like the sound of a refrigerator or distant machinery, but rhythmic, almost like breathing. I said we should turn back. Sam wanted to keep going. Ryan was quiet but followed. I marked the wall, and we went maybe another 50 feet when we found it. It was a hole, perfectly round, like it had been bored with a machine. It wasn't natural, maybe 6 feet wide, and it just went down. We tossed a rock in and never heard it hit anything. That was creepy enough, but then Ryan shined his light on the wall next to it. There were scratches, not tool marks, claw marks, dozens of them. Some shallow, some deep. And around the edge of the hole were small pieces of what looked like shredded fabric. We didn't touch anything. We didn't speak. Then the breathing sound changed. It got louder, closer. And I swear to God, I felt the ground vibrate under my feet like something massive had shifted beneath us. We ran. No one said a word. We just turned and moved as fast as we could through the tunnels, following the chalk arrows. I was in front, heart pounding, breathing like a steam engine. At one point, Ryan screamed that his light died, and Sam handed him a spare without slowing down. When we finally saw the orange flagging at the entrance, I nearly cried. We scrambled out into daylight, covered in dirt, breathing hard. We didn't talk much on the hike back. I think we were all trying to convince ourselves it was just our minds playing tricks, that we got spooked by an animal, or weird acoustics, or carbon dioxide buildup. But here's the part that really messed me up. A few weeks later, I went back to that forum to see if anyone else had posted about the cave. The original post was gone. The user who made it had deleted their account. And then I got a DM from a different user. All it said was, "Don't go back. It remembers." I never responded. I've never been back. Neither have Sam or Ryan. But sometimes, late at night when everything is quiet, I hear it again. That slow, heavy, rhythmic breathing. And I'm not even underground. My dad lived in the Appalachia during the 80s and 90s, but he moved out as soon as he was legally allowed to. His parents weren't the problem. It was the area that was the problem. He loved the mountains, in his words. The view was like candy for your brain, and the wind was like a kiss from a goddess. My dad never regretted his decision, but he did miss the place. He never once told me why he left. He just told me never to go. We had moved as far away as possible, all the way to Southern California. My dad died a few years ago, not long after I got a job with a caving company. My job is to explore caves that cause issues for local wildlife and human life. My job often consists of climbing in the cave, exploring, finding the problem, and relaying the information back to the appropriate people. Pretty simple and well-paying. I've traveled across countries, exploring all sorts of caves, in all sorts of cultures, in all sorts of weather. When I got the call that I would be heading out to the Appalachian Mountains and near the exact point where my father lived, I was understandably excited. I was practically jumping for joy. I couldn't wait until we arrived. It took some time and a few flights, but I made it to eastern Kentucky. We had to drive all the way up through the mountains, but I wasn't complaining. It was just like how my dad described it and so much more. The view is like candy, the wind like a heavenly kiss, the grass like rolling butter, and the mountains like natural testaments to nature's beauty. We arrived at an old-looking cabin built on stilts. A place looked to be 1,000,000 years old. I recognized nonetheless, it was in fact my dad's childhood home. It was almost a direct recreation of the pictures he showed me. The team told me that they needed to set up the equipment and to just hang out for half an hour while they set it up. I told them that I was going to be inside the cabin. They just nodded their heads and waved me away as they started to unpack their equipment. I stepped inside to still see all the furniture inside. Everything was coated in a thick layer of dust, so much so that I could barely make out the original color of everything. I walked around the small house and reminisced on all the stories my dad told me about in this house. I spent my time looking in every room. As I was about to walk out of the cabin, my manager walked in. "Hey, I need to tell you about what's going on in this area," he said, looking around the room with his hands in his pockets. As he said this, I felt the ground grow and immediately fall back to its original place. After this happened, the back of the house crumbled and brought down half the house. My manager and I ran outside of the house as it fell. That's what I was going to tell you about. There are some strange seismic reading out here. Now it's not weird for mountains and mountainous areas to have a few earthquakes every now and then, but these are getting to be more and more frequent, and they aren't just regular earthquake either. You felt it. He said all this, and he was obviously frightened. "Don't worry, man. I'll figure out what's going on, and if I don't, then I think that you will." I reassured him and started getting my gear on. I came to the cave entrance. It was a large open cave entrance, one of the biggest cave entrances I'd ever seen. I walked in with all my equipment set up to standard. I wouldn't normally do this, but this was serious. I had to be as well. I came to my first problem a few dozen yards from the entrance, a vertical drop. I did my usual and hooked my rope to a rock and made very sure that it was secure. I was climbing down when another earthquake happened. I could feel wind being pulled into the cave then. Hot air came barreling out of the cave. Not only that, but the cave walls also expanded and contracted just like the mountain itself. When I made it to the bottom, it leveled out and I started exploring further in, only to find the cave split into 5 different directions. I planted a piton onto a crack in the wall and hooked my spare rope to it before continuing down the center path. I came to a large open room with a pool of liquid in the middle. I felt the walls around me start to shake and crumble a little. Another earthquake was about to happen. I threw a stone in the liquid only to watch it hit the liquid and immediately disappear. The sound of steam escaping the rock didn't give me faith in the liquid, so I decided that it would be best to leave it be. Just then, another earthquake came, but I felt no wind. I followed the rope out, then marked the center path with spray paint. Then headed down the path to the right of the center and very quickly came across a split as the path again. As I sat there doing eeny, meeny, miny, mo, my manager came across the radio strapped to my chest. David, do you hear me?" He sounded frantic and I could hear the team packing up a bunch of equipment. "Yeah, man, I hear you. What the hell is going on up there?" I asked as fear rose in my chest. "These earthquakes aren't geological. They are biological." I don't even remember the rest of what he said, but that's when it took another breath. I ran. I ran as fast as I had ever run in my entire life. That is as fast as I will ever run ever again. I grabbed the rope and didn't bother to hook myself to it. I just started climbing. It coughed. I felt the breeze come in, then the forceful winds followed it. Then it made a sound like a cat hacking up a fur ball. Its throat started to close around me, and I was thrust out of the beast, but not before smacking against the roof of its mouth. I landed on the outside and broke both of my legs before continuing to roll down the hill. My manager caught me and lifted me onto his shoulder with the help of another one of my team. They carried me up the hill as the beast continued to cough that loud roar of a cough. We made it to the top of the hill and loaded me into the truck as the driver sped off. My manager called anyone that would listen, and soon enough we were all paid a large sum of money to keep quiet. Apparently it was waking up from some long rest. As far as I know, they put it back to sleep, but I'm not heading back there to figure it out. The money means nothing to me. My broken legs have a story to tell, and I'll be damned to hell if I don't warn someone of the dangers in Appalachia. My dad had the right choice, move as far as possible. I did, and you should as well, because if that thing wakes up, then let God have mercy on your soul. My name's Quentin. I'm a cave diver. No matter what people say, it's not as bad as people make it out to be, as long as you do your research and bring the right supplies. The reason there's so many scary stories about caving is because most people are unprepared and untrained. Most caves haven't really been mapped out. That's what brings me to them. I want to be the Christopher Columbus of the caving world, without all the colonization and taking land that's not mine. Long story short, my buddy Jake found a cave, unmapped and untouched. We geared up, made sure people knew our location, and made a trek to the cave. It wasn't far from where we lived, just a small town in the middle of Massachusetts. I met Jake there sometime near 2 p.m. We both took our own cars. He had a top-of-the-line Jeep, could get through any terrain. I had a beat-up Camry. Hey Jay, you ready? Am I ready? I was born ready. Yeah, okay. I chuckled a bit. Jake has been a good friend of mine since high school. I met him at the McDonald's I worked at. I'm assuming you packed everything like normal? He gave me a weird look. The gear, the safety gear. I didn't want to get so angry, but I called off work for today and I'm not missing more time when it's gonna rain later tonight. Oh, yeah, no, I got the gear, don't worry. He gave me one of those awkward smiles in an attempt to reassure me. I was a little uneasy about it, but I can't lie and say it didn't work because I stopped asking. It was around half a mile to the cave from where we parked, so it should be near 10 minutes to get there since we were walking. We grabbed our packs and made the walk. Around 5 minutes in, I noticed a skinny but 4-foot-tall rock with an arrow facing the direction we came from. Jake, what the hell? I thought you said this place was unexplored. Sorry, man. I must have missed it. What do you think it means? I can only assume where to leave. Let's just go check it out anyways. 5 minutes later, we ended up at the cave entrance. It was no different than any other cave I've seen in terms of the surroundings, except for one thing. Right above the cave hole was an arrow pointing up. I was still so pissed at Jake for thinking the cave was unexplored that when he attempted to bring up the arrow, I ignored him. Okay, I'll head in first then. As I watched him go down first, my excitement of the cave diminished. I followed suit anyways. Like every cave, this one was jaggy. The edges of the wall would scratch your skin like a cat's claw if you weren't careful. It's the only reason we're wearing leather down here. The cave went down like a slope on a graph. It went on like that till we hit a small tunnel. It was definitely the smallest space I ever went through. I had to push, no ram, my bag through it. I didn't think it was going to get through all the way with the sides of the tunnel squeezing me in its rocky hands. Jake, I'm having some trouble getting through. I'm going to need you to pull on my bag. Silence. I didn't even realize I couldn't hear his muffled scuffling in front of me. How far ahead did he get if I couldn't hear him right in front of me? Jake? I waited there for what felt like hours, It wasn't till I heard Jake scream at me that I realized it had only been a few minutes. "Quentin, back up and leave now!" He wasn't close at all. His voice echoed from what sounded like the bottom of the cave. I barely even heard him. "What's wrong?" "Jake! Jake, can you hear me?" I got no response, and right after I yelled back at him, the cave rumbled. A gust of wind blew into my face from the sides of my pack in front of me. I felt the cave yelling at me, and I wasn't the type of fool to ignore it. I scuffled as fast as I could in reverse. I didn't even grab my bag. As I was retracing my actions, my helmet somehow got stuck. I was so terrified that I just undid the strap and left it. The cave kept rumbling louder and louder as if the earth itself was imploding. I barely made it out the tunnel before I watched it completely close. And I don't mean it collapsed. It closed. I don't even know how to explain it. The rocks grew together. I didn't have time to worry about Jake. I crawled up the slope, faster and faster and faster till I got to the entrance. As I threw myself out, I looked at the entrance. I noticed the arrow changed directions. It was facing left, right where we came from. I didn't think anything was chasing me, but I ran and ran for what seemed like an eternity until I saw the rock we passed, the arrow pointing left. I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. That was until I saw the rock again. It was point right. I ran right. I came across it another time. It pointed straight. I went straight. Then I saw the cave and the arrow pointed down. I blinked and realized I never left the tunnel, let alone the cave. But I got out of the cave again, and I followed the arrows again. I'm stuck here. If you're reading this, then my message got out of this loop I'm in and means there's a connection between here and the real world. If you're reading this, send help.